Oh. Good afternoon. My name is Julie Interrante, and I am thrilled to be here today at the Asian Community Center to talk about dealing with difficult feelings through the holidays. We are right on the cusp of Thanksgiving and Christmas, along with other holidays that are coming. And this is a time for so many of us when we're kind of engaged in the holidays, but at the same time have things that float up in us around feelings, expectations. Perhaps we have lost someone this year, and so those feelings are also laying in us. Many of us are caring for someone at home, and that brings with it another whole set of feelings and things to think about and things to consider as we're moving into the holidays. And so I just want to welcome all of you and thank you for being here today. I think this is a really important topic for us to be talking about today. And I have a few lovely women with me this afternoon, and I'm going to give them a chance to just introduce themselves, and then we'll go forward with the topic and we'll see where we go. Okay? Start with
Yes, you can. So my name is Phyllis McMaster Moist, and my husband John was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2016. He's been living in a memory care facility since 2018, and I have downsized and I'm living in a condo for the first time in my life on my own.
Right.
So,
thanks, Phyllis. Barbara?
Hi, my name is Barbara, and I'm currently caregiving with my husband. He has Parkinson's and has had it for about 14 years. I'm also one of 3 sisters caring for my mother, who still lives on her own but needs a lot of help. So that's where I am.
Thanks, Barbara.
I'm Sally Weber, and I like to say to people, hey, I'm 86 and I'm living the dream, and have a lot of thoughts about Christmas. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want me to go on with that?
No, let's just, we'll take a look at a piece I brought along, and then we'll go from there.
Yes,
Thanks.
ma'am.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So, Sean, if you can put up the piece that I sent you that has my logo at the top. There we go. So I just want to talk about some basic points here as we begin this discussion. So one of the things that I think is really important for all of us to remember is that we are flexible, resilient human beings. And the reason that I put that right across the top this afternoon is because as we age and as we begin to care for other people, as circumstances in our lives change, it can be difficult for us to let go and let those changes happen without kind of hunkering down or hanging on to old traditions and the way things used to be. And then when things don't go that way, finding ourselves having a difficult time. And so I know for myself, I like to remind myself that being a human being brings with it being flexible and resilient. So I just want to remind everybody about that. And then if you will flip up the next slide there for me, Sean. Yep. I want to talk a little bit about ways to think about going into the holidays. As we prepare to go into the holidays, I think it's really important for us to consider what frame of mind am I in, looking at what are my expectations, how do I create rituals in my own life to honor where I am. So often lots of us are dealing throughout the year with losses, and that loss might be that someone that we love died. It might be that someone that we love has perhaps dementia, and we have had little losses throughout the year. It might be that family members have moved away. It could be that our family situation has simply changed overall. And so as we come into the holidays, it's real clear that things are not going to be exactly the same as they were. So first and foremost, I think it's important for us to create some rituals in our own lives to honor those changes and to honor the feelings that we have. One of the reasons that we create rituals is in order to invite someone that we care about, maybe it's a friend or a family member, to actually participate with us in a small ritual that acknowledges the changes that have taken place over the last year. I'm going to give you a couple of examples that I use myself. So sometimes if I have lost someone or have lost a big piece of my life, I have a little space in my house where I will put perhaps a candle and one flower. Or sometimes I have a small bowl of water where I will place a stone whenever I realize that I'm having a feeling about any particular loss that I've had. It's very simple, and yet it's really helpful to mark what I have been through in the last year. It gives me a way to clear out the space in my heart and in my thinking and in my body to be able to step more fully into what's in front of me, which for all of us right now is the holidays starting to come. Okay? Sean, would you put up that next slide for me, please? Here's something that I want us to really remember as we're having this conversations, and the women that are with me today are going to be able to talk directly to some of this. What I want us all to remember is that it's how important it is for us to honor ourselves and your preferences, right? So the number 2 there says, honor yourself and your preferences, and others will too. Here's something that I know without a doubt, that when I am clear about what I need, how I feel, what I want to do and what I don't want to do, and I can be clear about that, others absolutely honor my choices. One of the things that happens in the holidays is other people also have expectations about what those holidays should look like, okay? So I want to encourage all of us to find a way to make space enough to be able to feel inside and know, what do I want to participate in and what do I not want to participate in. So what I have there is, say no just because you don't want to. There's no better reason to not do something than the fact that you don't want to do it, even if it's a tradition in your family. If you don't have the energy, if it doesn't feel right to you this year, it's absolutely okay to say no. I also want you to think about your yeses. Saying yes only to the things that you really, really want to do and that feel right. And if at any point along the line someone invites you to something and you are uncertain, there's a lovely line that simply says, can I take some time and think about that and I'll get back to you. It saves a lot of us a lot of heartache in changing our minds or going to something that we don't really feel like we fit in very well. And so I just want to encourage all of us to keep in mind that if I participate in things that I really, really want to, then I'm fully present. I've got my full heart, my mind, my energy present. If I can't bring that, then it's probably best for me to say no. I also just want to tell you that guilt will not kill you. So often when I talk with people, they say, you know, I feel like I have to go because I feel guilty if I don't. And here's the thing. When we change our behavior, in all likelihood, we're going to have a little bit of guilt. But the more that we practice taking care of ourselves in a really clear and concise way, the less guilt we feel as we move along. Okay? I also want to encourage everybody to feel your feelings. Whatever it is that's coming up over the holidays is okay. There could be grief, sadness, there could be confusion, there could be uncertainty, there could be some anger, there could also be some excitement and happiness. And whatever it is, the best thing any of us can do is to stay present with our feelings and allow ourselves to feel them. Because if I don't, what I end up doing is I cut off a part of my life energy that would allow me to stay present with myself and with my loved ones. We'll talk more about this as Phyllis and Barb and Sally get a chance to talk about things, okay? Can I have that last slide, please, Sean? Thank you. So what I want to say is we're not here to talk about canceling Christmas or the holidays. I think what we're really here to talk about is how do any of us create the holidays in such a way that they bring peace and memories and a feeling of wholeness and of meaning. Just because things change and because I may have feelings this year that I didn't have previously or that are revisited, it doesn't mean that I can't have meaningful holidays and experiences and also feel whole and grounded. The truth is life changes as we move forward in our lives, and so the circumstances and our traditions and how we celebrate things also changes. Okay? So that's enough of me talking right now. I want to start actually with Sally this afternoon and just give her an opportunity to tell you a little bit about where she's at around the holidays, and then we'll go from there. Sally?
So as I started to say, I am 86, and that means that I have gone through a lot of Christmases and holidays and Thanksgivings. And when Julie invited me to be part of this panel, I began thinking about the life cycle of my Christmases. It starts out with childhood. You know, remember your childhood when coming down those stairs or in that room, and here's that Christmas tree, and it's filled with presents and the anticipation and the excitement of Christmas Eve. It's just so wonderful. And then that morphs from childhood into when we're parents and we want to recreate that for our own children. And that's so much fun for us to try and get the magic out there for them. And then that morphs into the kids grow up, and then they create their own households. And are we having Christmas with them? We kind of go, okay, we have to go here and here and kind of work that out. And when my first husband died the day after Thanksgiving, I'll go into that more later, but that was an interesting time. And the next year, when I was at the 1-year anniversary of his death, oh my goodness, that's a story in itself. And then I had a wonderful time with my second husband, and he died year before last. And it's just interesting to see how our Christmases and what we do with them, how they morph from here to there. This Christmas is actually the first Christmas that I have the opportunity to be alone, and I'm excited about, I get to figure out exactly what I want to do for Christmas. It sounds really selfish, but this year it's all about me. And I have been having a lot of fun saying, what do I actually want to do for Christmas? Yeah. So it's a very exciting time for me. And it also can be very difficult because it can bring up all kinds of expectations around what this should be. So, interesting season.
Thanks, Sally. I really appreciate that. And I also really appreciate you saying that, gee, this might sound selfish, and yet I don't hear it as selfish. I hear it as empowered. Like that yes, things are going to be different, and this is your first time being alone for the holidays, and yet you're taking it and making it into an opportunity to say, wait a minute, who am I today? How do I want to spend it? Have you made choices about that yet? Do you have any plans?
I really have. I have a plan.
Let's hear it.
So I gave it a lot of thought. And so this is my plan at the moment. I have a reservation in San Francisco for 2 nights, Christmas Eve and Christmas night. I plan on driving in and sitting in Union Square and wrapping energy bars with $5 in a little ribbon and giving them away. And I might do some other things. I'm going to really enjoy the music and the watching people, and then maybe go watch the ocean. I love to watch the ocean. And Sunday morning I may go to Glide Memorial. And then I wonder if there are any restaurants open in San Francisco for Christmas Day. And so I looked and I made a reservation for myself, and I thought, oh, I'll invite my daughter and her husband. Maybe they'll join me for lunch on Christmas Day. So I sent her an email, said, I'm inviting you, Diane and Bob, to a Christmas lunch with me at this restaurant. And she got back to me and she said, what are you doing? No, you can't make plans. What are you doing here? So as I explained it to her, and I said, you're just being invited. You don't have to come, and it doesn't have to happen. She texted back and she said, Bobby and I will be very happy to join you for lunch on Christmas Day.
Nice.
And then I began thinking, but there is one person left in my house. There's a little 25-year-old girl that I kind of assumed might be going home. And so I came home and I said to her, if it would appeal to you to come with me to San Francisco, I'd be really glad to have you. And I outlined to her, and she said, I'm not sure yet. So I went back and I changed my reservations to include her and put her in on the lunch date. And, and I feel so fluid about it. It doesn't matter if something happens, and it doesn't even have to come out. But it's just, I'm really feeling joyful about Christmas this year for this.
Sally, it's just so fabulous to hear you talk about this, because what I'm hearing in you is exactly what we just talked about, which is if I am clear about what I want and I take the time to listen and to feel internal what feels right for me, and then I move from that place, even if my family reacts with, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
If I'm clear from my heart and my gut, then I don't get rocked off of my center.
That's right.
And that's what I'm hearing is happening.
So
for
my
you.
daughter said later, well, come to my daughter's in-laws for the Christmas Eve party. I said, I will say no, please don't. I don't want to be crashing someone else's party, and I don't want to have them think they have to get me a present. Thank you very much. That is not what I want to do. And I am clear
Nice.
about it. And I don't know why, but it sure feels good. Having
I just
fun.
want to applaud. It's just, I'm just so happy
Really
to hear
having
this.
fun, yeah.
Right. And I know myself, I have spent several Christmases alone in my lifetime, and there's something very lovely and wonderful about them. And there's also something about that happens culturally, because so many of us feel like no one should be alone at the holidays. And I just want to say that isn't necessarily true, right? In some ways, Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever the holiday is really simply another day. And I know we have endowed lots of days with certain meaning, but the truth is, sometimes those holidays all on one's own can be very powerful. They can be very internal and have deep meaning. So I just applaud that you have been so clear about it. And then even as you were thinking about this young person that's been staying in your house, it's like, wait, I'm going to check in there, and you using the word fluid is really exactly the feeling I get as I'm listening to you. There's a real fluidity in it, and that's possible because you are so clear internal. Because this is where the fluid capacity comes from, right? So thank you for sharing. I'm sure we'll hear more today yet, but thank you for starting us
My
off.
pleasure.
Yeah. Phyllis, do you want to share anything?
We've all experienced the pandemic, which actually completely reshaped our thinking
Absolutely.
on spending time with people versus spending time alone and we went into kind of a forced isolation if we were being careful with our health. And holidays have always been stretched out for me because I have two daughters, one that lives way up north and one that lives just down the road in Stockton. But she can get tied up with her in-laws. So we've always had to kind of play loose with what day we actually all come together. And we were just talking this morning about the whole space of, you know, I'm dealing with ambiguous loss.
Yes.
Because my husband has Alzheimer's, so he's still alive, but my existence is somewhat like a widow.
Yes.
And not everybody in my life knows how to deal with that.
Absolutely.
And so we were discussing this morning in a little group about the time that it takes as I practice being more independent and not having my husband be an anchor that holds me back because I feel guilty spending time or having, you know, a really good time away from him, not really being clear what he's present to, but knowing that he's not present to a lot. He's pretty much confined to bed at this point and isn't really mobile or talking or interacting with the world. And so holidays for me are really looking at what's going to be a good balance. And one of the things I've noticed, it was lovely the couple of years that I created a Christmas on my own, because it was me. I'm exactly like Sally. It gave me an opportunity rather than really going into a sad mode. You know, I missed John. I had moments of being touched, and the tears would be there over what we would be doing if he was there. But on the other hand, I got to do exactly what I wanted to do. And so I looked at things that way. And what I'm noticing is now that we're becoming more social, I'm really having to pay attention to balancing my life, because I get around a crowd of people and it's exhausting now.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
So I came back, I just came from a family weekend with a lot of people around, and I noticed that the next day I really just wanted to not really do anything and you know, get some laundry done and kind of putter around the house and not really go anywhere. But
I appreciate everything that you said, but there's two things in particular that kind of stand out in my mind, and one is this idea of ambiguous loss, okay? And I know that in previous programs here we have talked a bit about ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss is really the experience of someone still being here physically, but mentally and in full, not in full capacity. And so there's what you're speaking to, Phyllis, and I really appreciate this, is I'm still married, but my experience in the world is much more that of someone who is widowed. And how do you navigate all of that generally in life and now as you're moving into the holidays?
right.
Right? How much do I spend time with John for the holidays? How much time do I spend with people that I love? What do I have the energy for?
Right.
And I just want to tell everybody that's listening and is present here with us today that what Phyllis just said is one of the most important things for us to really be looking at. Araya Mountain Dreamer, who is an author, wrote a book and a poem called The Invitation. And one of the things that she says in there is, I'm really, really good at knowing how much time something takes, but I'm not very good at all in knowing how much energy something takes. And so when you name it like that, Phyllis, it's like it just puts it right in front of us that says, I need to check in with me. I need to check in with my own energy. What do I have capacity for? And if I say yes to this particular event or this gathering, and I come home and find the next day that I'm depleted, I may want to change my plans for the next couple days, or maybe next time I won't plan 2 or 3 things right in a row, right? And at the holidays, there's so many things that we could do, right? So it really is so much about how much energy and capacity do I have to be in communication and in contact with people. And that's the other piece that you were so clear about. The pandemic set a whole new foundation for us around that. And now that we're moving more out of that and have more leeway this year with the holidays, I think it's really something to be paying attention to. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Barbara, do you want to share some things?
Sure. I feel like I'm right in this transition. My family has always really celebrated the holidays. I have 3 sisters and I had a brother who has passed, but we would always get together and have a big meal, and we carried on the tradition of giving each other gifts way beyond most of my friends because we had so few little ones around. And my daughter, who is adopted, came on Christmas Eve 27 years ago, and that just set up Christmases to be a lot about her because finally we had a grandchild, running around the house for my mom. So lately, the last couple of years, things are changing. My husband's Parkinson's has made him really not want to be part of anything. And what I find is that we gather as a family and he either doesn't go or he goes and he is uncomfortable, has to lay down, can't eat that time. And it affects me. It affects my whole extroverted personality that wants to be there celebrating, and yet I have a partner who's clearly not engaged or wanting to be engaged. So this year, I've kind of thought a lot about how I want to handle that, and the good news is that we are having a small Thanksgiving with only my husband and I and my one sister and her husband at our house, so that I don't have to take him anywhere. If he wants to lay down, he can go back to the bedroom and lay down. And they seem fine with that. They said it'll be a nice, restful time, so that's all worked out. But Christmas will still be the big event with my nephews coming, one from Southern California and his child, and it'll be the big event, and I haven't figured out yet how I will deal with that. And if I take him, I'm going to have those feelings of not only worrying about him and diminished joy maybe, but also embarrassment a little bit and jealousy. That my sisters are there with their fully healthy husbands, and I'm there with somebody who can't engage. So that's always hard on me. But anyways, I'm kind of in transition as to how to figure out what to do with that holiday to make it special. Unlike Sally, I'm not really going to go off and do my own thing, but maybe part of the day I will. I don't know. It's
Right.
yeah.
I so appreciate your honesty about the feelings that you have, and just the uncertainty, right? Because I think there's a great deal of uncertainty, especially when we are still caring for someone in our home. Can you articulate the embarrassment piece just a little bit more? Can you put words to that?
Well, I think there are expectations in my family. We've always laughed and said, if you don't talk, you don't belong in our family. And so my husband, who's always hurt, will talk almost not at all on Christmas Day. And I get embarrassed by that. I wish he would show that he cared more about them.
I appreciate that. So I just don't want to miss this point because it's part of what we talked about at the very beginning, which is the idea that we come into the holidays with expectations, right? And a lot of those expectations come right out of our families of origin, right? And yet, as we marry and have families, those things have to change. And then as we continue and we start caring for people and things happen in life, now all of a sudden there's no way we can meet all those expectations. So part of what we're talking about is being able to turn internal and kind of find a way to comfort ourselves and say, yeah, this was the expectation before, and yet it's not the reality of where I'm living today. It's part of being really honest, and I think of being really honest first and foremost with myself. I have to be able to say, this is where we are today in my life. Now here's the thing I want to say about that. When I can step into that place in my own life where there's changes going on, usually what will come up first is my grief. I usually have sadness once I begin to admit to myself, life isn't the same as it used to be. And so then I, in my own heart, have to be willing to let go of some of those expectations, and then I'm able to go out into the world and be honest out there too, right? So I appreciate your willingness to say I have some embarrassment because of that, and then you also speak beautifully to the jealousy idea, right? Have others in the room felt that at different times? Like, gosh, everybody else still has their spouse intact, they're traveling for the holidays, they're getting together, they're doing all their same fun stuff, and I'm here trying to figure out how to navigate this so that there's meaning for me and also taking care of or paying attention to what might be important for the person that I love. Do you have any sense at all about how you want to navigate that?
Well, the only thing I've thought about is that we could, certainly with my daughter, create our morning, and then perhaps my husband would go to his twin brother's house while I'm with my family. Because he's very, very close to his twin brother. He lives close to where I'm going to go, and he might be more comfortable doing that.
That sounds lovely.
Right, and if he was with his brother, then I would feel less concerned. But I will still, I'll be honest, I'll still go to the event and feel different.
Of course.
Because he's not with me.
Of course. It's part. I think it's part of it's the grief. It's the reality. It's, there is a part of us that, when something changes so much, we actually feel sad for ourselves as much as we feel sad for the whole situation. And I just want to say, it's okay that we feel sad for ourselves. So often I hear people say things like, oh, I'm just feeling sorry for myself. And I want to clarify that some, because that's really not what's going on. It's being able to say, I'm sad that my life has changed, and it gives every one of us, when we're able to feel our own sadness for ourselves, an opportunity to cultivate compassion for ourselves, which is, I am aware that I am feeling sad, and I am here for myself. And not trying to push it away, not trying to make it be different, not saying, oh my gosh, I must have done something wrong and that's why I feel this way. The truth is, life circumstances change, and that means that I'm going to have losses. I'm going to be able to find my creativity in a new way. I will have an opportunity to experience my resilience in a new way. But if I don't tend to the parts of me that are sad, I have a very difficult time accessing the creativity and the pieces that really will feed me and my family. So since we're talking about that, Sally, I want to come back to you for a minute. As you looked at this year's holiday, was there any time in there that you had some sadness or had to kind of look at were there feelings that came up as a result of looking at recreating Christmas for yourself?
Well, it really means a lot to me to hear you talk about this self-acceptance of sadness, that I'm feeling grief, and grief can be complicated. And instead of saying I'm feeling sorry for myself, this is what it is, to be able to accept something. I know I'm learning that suffering comes from wanting things to be different. If I can settle into this change. But I wanted to address a little bit when my first husband died the day after Thanksgiving. You can imagine, you know, he's in the hospital Thanksgiving Day. Well, moved to the next year, on the year anniversary of his death, I was in terrible shape. I was terribly guilty. I had so much regret. And it was so bad that I put candles in cereal bowls and lit the candles and put them by my pillow at night to try and get through the night, because I was going through a very sad, heartbroken, guilty, regretful time. And I wanted to find a retreat. And I was able to find a retreat and go away in December. But so that year I said, I'm going to do something different. I went and signed up to deliver Thanksgiving dinners to shut-ins on Thanksgiving Day, on that year anniversary, and I invited my family to come with me. So my daughter, my granddaughter, my son-in-law piled in, went and started delivering Thanksgiving dinners in big bags to shut-ins, and it really was a help for us to kind of honor the anniversary of my husband's death. And I think that creating some kind of a ritual like that at the time of a holiday death or whatever is a help. It was a big help to us, and it's gotten better. So
yeah, and I really appreciate your being able to talk about how difficult it was that first year too, and which is also almost always the case for any of us who have lost a loved one during the previous year. When we come into the holidays, those first holidays without someone that we love can really be excruciating, and finding ways to help ourselves through that, I think, are really helpful. Family members will often help with that, and also not expect ourselves to get through any kind of holiday without those feelings coming up, and coming up pretty strongly. And I just want to remind everybody, that's not about feeling sorry for oneself or being dramatic. The truth is, when we love deeply, we grieve deeply. And when the holidays come around, very, very often that grief gets touched. And so I just appreciate your sharing that. Phyllis, I want to ask you a couple questions too.
Sure.
So first of all, do you have any ideas about what you want to do for the holidays this year, whether it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or Kwanzaa or any of the others that all come in this time of the year?
I was just together with family this last weekend, and we were discussing Thanksgiving, and we've gone from plan A to plan B. We thought everybody was all getting together. On my side of the family, out of 4 siblings, there's 3 of us left with all our extended children. And we have some new babies in the family, so that would be great. But the one house where we would have gotten together is one of the homes of the brand new babies, and she's not really up to having a big crowd yet. So we're going to plan B with my daughter coming down from Eureka, and probably staying with me, and then at some point we'll go to Stockton and all get together, and just keeping it my 2 daughters. And anytime I have both my daughters in the same space is wonderful. So
Yeah.
I'll have to balance it. You know, I'm used to being in my place by myself, and I'll have my daughter, her husband, and her adult daughter, and then her high school age daughter. So and I'll have them staying with me for a few days. So
Nice.
I have to create some space afterwards where I can just kind of decompress. And,
Absolutely.
you know, and
Yeah.
relax. So
So will you and your daughter then go see John? during that time, or how does that all fit in
You
the
know,
mix
I
here?
will spend, I've been going to feed John every day because he doesn't feed himself. And so I try to get there at least 4 or 5 times a week. I recognize that I can't go every day. It really takes something out of me
Yeah.
to, be in the space with him and be his caregiver. So at some point, I will go and feed him on Thanksgiving Day. I will invite them to come with me. Last year, they came with me.
They did.
They did. And so my daughter and son-in-law, so they're close to him, even though he's their stepfather. So.
Right.
So yes, and that will be a good opportunity for them to see him because they live way up in Eureka.
Right.
So, and we'll just spend a brief time with him and then come home and
And does
have our
that
dinner.
feel good to you? I mean, like, what happens to you internally?
It's taken me a lot of time to go there, particularly since, he's living in a memory care facility and a lot of the residents in his cottage are able to interact and come to a table and understand at some level that it's Thanksgiving. And so the activities there are geared for people at that level of disability. And so John is completely, he doesn't know what day it is. I keep having to remind myself of that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter to him what was on the plate of food,
Right.
It's ground up. We are having to grind it up for him anyway. So
Right.
by the time he gets it, it's all kind of a casserole. But
Yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying about it. It's taken you time. Like over time, we integrate it. We can take it in and process it, and it becomes different, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you can do this 1 year at a time. The other thing I want to do, and I appreciate you talking about this and your willingness to be honest about it, and that is, if anyone that's listening is caring for someone with dementia, I just want to say I think it's really important for us to have in mind ways to be with this person that we love. Because in many ways, the holidays don't mean what they used to. For some people with dementia, too much activity going on around actually is disorienting. They can feel like they want to back up from it. It can upset them. So again, I think it's really important to kind of ground internally, check in inside, and say, you know what, maybe I'm going to just take a moment and sit next to the person that I love that has dementia, hold his or her hand, maybe take one hand in both my hands, and just look at them and say, I want you to know I love you, and I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And that when you bring yourself fully present with someone who has dementia, it makes all the difference in the world. That becomes your gift. Whether that's for Thanksgiving or for Christmas or for Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or any of the other holidays that are happening at this time of the year, right? You know, it's Thich Nhat Hanh, the lovely Vietnamese Buddhist monk, who says the greatest gift you can ever give anyone is your presence. And I think the holidays are all about exactly that. Regardless of what issue in my family I'm dealing with, if I can go to the people that I love, whether they have dementia or not, you can take their hand and you can look in their eyes and say, I love you. And I am glad that we are family, and I know that you are here and I am here for you. That matters. That's me bringing myself fully present into the room. And sometimes that can feel a little uncomfortable because it requires a certain amount of vulnerability to be able to say that to someone, or it might bring up tears, or it might bring up feelings. And yet it is the depth of who we are that we share with one another that actually makes all the difference in our daily lives as well as the holidays, right? So I had a question for you and I have completely forgotten it. Does anybody have anything they want to add that's coming up to like right off the top of
Well,
your head?
it's,
Go
I
ahead, Sally.
appreciate what you're saying about presents.
Okay.
I have a friend that says it's all about presents with a C, not presents with a T.
Exactly.
Yeah, paying attention. Love is paying attention, I think. Yeah, beautiful.
Which is what it sounds like you plan on doing when you go to San Francisco, is taking your presence and being in Union Square or being wherever it is that you are. Absolutely. Barbara, I know what it was. Have you talked to Michael at all about like what you're thinking about for the holidays? Does he have any feelings or ideas or?
We haven't talked this year, but we certainly have talked throughout the year, and I know his preference is probably to not go. So, and he's always very happy to be with his brother.
Right.
So, my preference would be that his brother, who is not married, and has a grown son, that they would come to our house
Right.
and be with him so that he's in his own place and he's not alone. So if that can happen, that would be great. But I was thinking more about the sadness when you were talking about how when I feel different at my family's event, there's sadness really. And some of it is sadness that I don't have Michael there with me, but some of it is that I haven't met the expectation. So some of it's that I fall into the trap of the family does this. They expect us all to be there and engaged, and I don't somehow live up to that because so it's twofold. It's sadness, but also feelings
Right.
of not living up to
Right.
the family code.
And I really appreciate that because I think one of the things we really have to come to grips with is not being understood. You know, not being able to care for oneself and stay solid in what I know is right for me and let go even if somebody doesn't understand me or has some big feelings about it. In fact, that's part of what you talked about with your one daughter, right? She had this reaction. But you were solid, Sally, in what you knew for sure. Go ahead.
The word expectations just really pushes one of my buttons because as I've gone through and watched, we have culturally, we have so many expectations
Yes.
around Christmas.
Yes.
And we have this picture of a Norman Rockwell painting.
Exactly.
You know? And the family is there and and we're all getting along and it's all beautiful. and both the food and the togetherness
Yes.
and the decorations, I mean, and you know what? I can't say a bad word here, but you know what? No, let's give up the expectations.
Yeah.
We can't say, I have to fit into this cultural picture of what it's supposed to be.
right.
We
That's
just
right.
don't have to do it anymore. And to give up the idea that I have to be understood. I love when you said at the very beginning of the hour that let's let go of the feeling that, oh, well, I'm not being understood. You know
Right.
what? That's kind of part of letting go of expectations. When I
Yes.
met my second husband, and we're approaching the holidays, they meant a lot to him, and they had big gatherings. And I said to him, I have retired from Christmas. Please tell your family that no presents. I'm not going to receive or give any presents. I will send out letters during the year when I want to. And I feel so relaxed. I watch people running around and getting so stressed over Christmas, and I sit there and go, I'm just going to sit there and have fun and relax now.
Right. Right. That's
So-
lovely. I think you're just speaking to the whole culture, right? I mean, we're all nodding our heads saying, yep, there are tons of expectations around the holidays. Whatever holidays we celebrate, there's an expectation that we are going to step in and do it in a certain way. And I like that you speak to the idea of the Norman Rockwell painting, right? And I have to tell you, I mean, I work with many families, and I don't see Norman Rockwell happening very often in anyone's family, right? I mean, it's
right.
real life. And that's why I talk all the time about our feelings, because in Norman Rockwell paintings, we don't see anybody's feelings, right? It's almost like culturally we have made an agreement that we should just stay above them, like kind of pretend they're not there. And yet that very action, that very tradition in itself is actually what stops us from being able to be present in the holidays with the people that we really love. And I just know from all of the end of life work that I have done that it is so seldom the fact that people haven't had enough time that they're upset that they're dying. It's that they haven't been present for the time that we have been here. And I just think the holidays brings that up in a really good way, right? It's not so much how much time even we have together. Even when you talk about Michael going to his brothers and you going to your families, right? It's like, if that's what he's most comfortable with, creating something for him either in your home or at his brother's home that has meaning for Michael, your job's done, right? I mean, then it's like, then you really are listening internally and listening to him. And I think that's a really powerful thing to do. I think you also speak to something that we don't talk a whole lot about, but I think has value and bears some time with today, and that is not doing things that are dangerous. Now, I'm not talking about dangerous in terms of things that could hurt people, but not committing to going to and doing things that are going to be really upsetting to the person that we love, right? You know, because like we talked about before, when someone has dementia or diminished capacity of any sort, taking them on a trip for Christmas, probably not a good idea, you know? And it's really not safe emotionally for someone, and really not even safe for the one who is caring for them, because it ends up being too much for someone who has diminished capacity. And that's what I'm hearing you talk about. I love how you beautifully said, you know, my ideal would be that Michael's brother would come to our home, we could create an environment there for them. Michael's most comfortable. He doesn't have to feel like he has to talk when he doesn't really want to with my family. And it really kind of frees you up to be with your family in the way that you really choose to be. I think that's really powerful. Do you think that's going to be able to be something that you can create this year?
I think it is. I don't know whether it'll be at our house, but being with his brother, I think I can create.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Go ahead.
I can speak to traveling
Great.
one last time.
Right.
And I know, as I'm part of support groups, I hear this a lot, you know. John and I always gave each other some trip for the year for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
That's one of the things I'm missing that I'm sad about, because we did a lot of traveling. And I retired in 2014, and we took a great big huge trip right after I retired. He was not diagnosed yet, but I knew something was going on.
Right.
And so we go on this big trip. Just getting through an airport was a nightmare, because he couldn't understand, he couldn't handle the crowds. He couldn't understand all the orders that the TSA agents were barking at him. And of course, he couldn't do it fast enough for them, which upset him. By the time we got to our gate, he was already upset, and we weren't even on the airplane yet. And then being in a foreign country was horrible. And what happened is, it was the beginning of the whole change in roles, where I suddenly was in charge of everything. And I was actually the brain for two people, and I was actually managing two people's lives, not just my own. So, yeah.
I so appreciate that you can articulate it that way, because I hear this so often where, and even the way you started with it was just this one last trip we were going to take. I
Right.
knew it was the last trip. Often by the time I know it's the last trip, it probably is past the last trip.
That's right.
And that it's hard.
Yeah, yeah.
And that you are actually planning and traveling and doing everything for two.
Yeah.
You are no longer sharing the traveling and the preparation and stuff like you had in the past.
Right.
And I just want to acknowledge how painful it can be to miss that piece. I mean, that, like you said,
Yeah.
that this is what we did for each other at the holidays.
Yeah.
And I miss that, because that was an important thing and something we looked forward to.
As we were talking about jealousy and, what can trigger me, I have a lot of friends on Facebook who are doing a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
And I look at that and it's like, I want to
Yeah.
do that too.
Right.
Not that John's medical condition or the fact that he's not with me is the only thing holding me back.
Right.
Because the pandemic would also give me pause still.
Right.
And I have
Right.
friends who've just come back from Europe, and one of them is coping with COVID right
Yeah.
now from her
Yeah.
trip. So yeah.
It's
yeah.
multi-layered.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I just appreciate both you and Barbara talking about how that, jealousy can crop up.
Yeah.
Like, wow, how come they get to do it and I don't?
I know.
And we're also all at a time in our own lives where we also are aware that we have more limited time on
Yeah.
the planet than we've ever
That's
had
right.
before. And what does that mean for me? And
That's right.
that's again why I think it's so important to be present.
Yeah.
So Sean, would you do me a favor and put the slide up that has the sunflower on it? I think we started with it. There it is. I just love this quote. It's by Patricia Campbell Carlson. And she says, "Grief and gratitude are kindred souls, each pointing to the beauty of what is transient and given to us by grace." So I want to offer that to everybody just as we move into Thanksgiving, and as much as possible to remember that grief and gratitude really are, they come together, right? We all know that we live in a very big mystery. We don't exactly get how this all works here, why we come for whatever period of time that we do, but that we have an enormous opportunity to live and to love and to connect and to say goodbye when the time is that. And in the meantime, we have a whole bunch of transitions to walk through. We have holidays to be part of, and we have ourselves to be present to and to evolve as we live our lives one day at a time. So anybody have any last thing you want to say before we close today? I see our time is up.
Just I'm grateful to be here and grateful for the opportunity that the holidays give us to kind of look at our lives and look at ourselves and our place in it.
Yeah,
And, the problems can help us grow.
absolutely.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Sean, would you put up that last slide? Because actually, Sally, you're just speaking to the last piece that I brought along today. Let's see if we can put it up. That one I cannot read from here. But I want to put it up for you. In fact,
It's
wait
here.
a second.
There it is.
Here it is. Hang on, I have a piece of paper with it on. I just think this is beautiful. It's by Christy Nelson, and it says, "Gratefulness is a touchstone, offering us what we need, not simply to survive difficult times, but to appreciate them for their exquisite complexity, buried blessings, rich opportunities, and deep teachings." And I just want to say to the three of you that you guys really have been what this quote says, is you've all spoken to the rich blessings, the depth of what these experiences are. You have spoken to how you're different because of what you're doing. I just really appreciate that you're willing to come and share your own lives and your own hearts and your own vulnerability with us. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank
And
you,
I want to
Julie.
say thank you to everybody that's watching with us, and to wish you a happy Thanksgiving and a meaningful holiday season. Thanks so much for being here.
Amen. Thank you.